Hello, literates and litterbugs. My name is TV's Kind, and every time I sit down to try and do a What's the Deal with Pantheon video, something gets in the way. Something gets in the way, and today the thing that's getting in the way is the Realms of Runeterra, the first ever collectible narrative companion book from Riot Games. Specifically, it's a book about the lore of League of Legends that will take you on a journey through 11 of Runeterra's regions, chronicling conflicts, entrenched rivalries, and covert alliances, while giving you insights into the heroes, flora, fauna, architecture, politics, and technologies on all corners of the world. And beyond that, I don't know very much about this book at all. I know what's publicly available as a book with some lore in it, and also a bunch of illustrations and a bunch of new content also from the writers and artists at Riot Games, along with a whole bunch of assets that seem to be sourced from the League of Legends Universe page, or at least from the same place that the League of Legends Universe page sources its assets. So since there isn't really very much to talk about with the book itself, until it's out and we can actually read it, I would like to talk about what this book means. What it means for League of Legends as a lore, as an IP, and as a product, and for the publishing of that product. Or, well, I mean, I should correct myself. What it might mean. What it might mean for League of Legends as lore and as IP, because I'm a YouTuber, I don't work at Riot, I don't have a lot of special insight. I'm doing my analysis from the outside. I can't read the minds of Riot executives, and if I could, I would use that power probably first to find out why they haven't fired Scott Gelb for repeatedly touching his employees' genitals, and why they forced those women who were suing them for gender discrimination into forced arbitration rather than let them have their day in court. But, you know, maybe that's something you can only really understand if you're a high-powered video game executive, and that's why I have to stay a YouTuber who speculates about lore on the internet. Who knows? But in order to talk about the future of League of Legends lore and the future of League of Legends publishing, we have to talk a little bit about the past first. This is the Art of League of Legends, an art book that Riot put out a few years back, and in a word, it is exquisite. And I feel very confident in saying that it's absolutely exquisite. I own a volume of this book, which was sent to me very graciously, generously is the word I'm looking for. It was sent to me very generously by someone who works at Riot, whose name I've forgotten because I lost the letter that came along with the book, which has been kind of eating me inside. But if you're watching, thank you so much for sending this thing to me, because it is absolutely gorgeous. It's got this wonderful, like, faux leather cover that just feels amazing in your hands. It's got all that intricate design work. The pages are gloriously colored and vibrant, and it's just, oh, it's a wonderful piece of work. It is The Art of League of Legends, Volume 1. In case you're wondering, there has never been a Volume 2, and there's never really been a lot of talk about doing a Volume 2. I think there was an Ask Riot post one time where there was they were like, yeah, we totally want to do a Volume 2, and then nothing ever came of it so far, and for my money, I don't expect that there ever will be one. I mean, maybe they remember it all of a sudden, oh wait, shit, we should probably follow up on that, but for my money, I don't think so. And the reason why is that Riot has what I like to call an obstinate dedication to an aesthetic of quality control. This book was entirely internally produced at Riot, as far as I know, anyway. This was a passion project for a bunch of Rioters in the art and narrative departments, and especially the archivists at Riot, the people who are responsible for gathering assets and like gathering all the artwork and all the writing that's done for League of Legends and putting it all in archives that are easily accessible to the internal for the internal use of Riot themselves, who basically said all this stuff is so gorgeous and we want to put it together in an art book and put it out there, a really high quality, lovely product that would be really cool for the fans to own. And so they pitched it internally, they got the funding, all of the design work was done internally, all of the assets were gathered internally, all of the production design was done internally, and they worked with a printer to turn it into an actual book, and then turned it into a piece of merchandise. But they never worked with anyone really outside the company. This was all internal. It was all a bunch of passionate Rioters doing a fantastic job at creating something beautiful. And then they never created Volume 2. So this is Riot's ethos, or at least it has been for the past, good lord, almost 10 years at this point. They never outsource anything if they can do it themselves, because they have an obstinate dedication to an aesthetic of quality control. I'm going to repeat that phrase a couple of times so it sinks in. You can see this on display, especially in the way that they've handled esports over the years. You might know that back in the day, Riot used to work with a whole bunch of international partners when it came to doing the esports leagues around the world. OGN, ESL, I think they still work with Garena nowadays. The LPL had an independent broadcast. Over time, all of that basically got absorbed into the Riot esports department. They took over control of the whole thing. Not necessarily out of malice, although some esports experts might disagree, but specifically so that they could enforce their aesthetic of quality control, so they could unify the broadcasts in a coherent way and make sure, at least in their minds, that they were delivering the best quality product to the players that they could. And that sounds pretty good when you say it. Like, it sounds like a good thing. Oh, they have a dedication to quality control. That surely is not a bad thing. And at best, true, it does create things like The Art of League of Legends Volume 1, but at its worst, it's also what ensures that Volume 2 will never happen. So, how does this relate to the Realms book? Well, if you followed this channel for a while, you know one of my primary complaints about the lore of League of Legends is that it is a tangled forest of dangling plot threads. And this has been its problem since always, even since the 2014 lore retcon that was supposed to kind of streamline the production, to kind of make the world more coherent. In 2014, League of Legends has still ever since been just a dangling morass of plot threads, character developments that are never developed upon, ideas that are never explored, concepts that are set up and then never actually iterated upon, ticking time bombs like the Void or the coming of Mordekaiser's Horde from the Shadow Isles that, yeah, sort of there, but not from Shadow Isles. He's retconned, so now that he's coming from inside Noxus, inside the Immortal Bastion. These ticking time clocks are set up, and then they're never allowed to go anywhere. All these plot threads about who the characters are, the quests that they're on, the things that they're trying to accomplish with their lives, the ways in which they're trying to change their worlds, that are never really iterated upon, that are never really explored. And a big part of the reason why is that obstinate dedication to a certain aesthetic of quality control, at least in my view. Once again, this is a speculative video with my analysis. We're not talking about like objectively provable things in this particular video. So, Riot's lore department has been putting in an absolute monster amount of work over the last 5 years since the 2014 lore retcon to try and bring League of Legends into a workable state lore-wise. And I will not for 1 second stand here and say that they've been lazy about it. Like, everything I know about them says that they've been putting in the hours. They've been on the grind. They've been doing everything they can to get the game to a state where it's, you know, more tenable to tell stories in it. And this book is kind of a triumph of that, I think. Because in order for a book like this to exist, in order to have a journey through 11 of Runeterra's regions chronicling conflicts, entrenched rivalries, and covert alliances while giving new insight into the heroes, flora, fauna, architecture, politics, and technologies from all corners of the world, you first have to have heroes, flora, fauna, architecture, politics, and technologies from all corners of the world. You first have to have conflicts and rivalries and covert alliances and regions. You have to have all that stuff so that you can put it into the book. This is a bit of a kind of a culmination of a hell of a lot of work that the lore department has been doing. But it's also taking them half of the game's lifespan, pretty much, to get to a point where it's possible to create something as basic as this. Like, not that it's going to be low quality, but it's going to be basic. It's going to be, this is what Demacia is like, and they have this sort of culture, and they do these things there. Like, it's going to be very, it's, at least as far as I can tell, this book is primarily about establishing some fairly basic things about each of the regions and kind of codifying that into a united whole as a basis of lore from which future stories can be spun. And I think it's great that they've gotten there, but it took them half of the game's lifespan. And that slowness, that has been one of the major millstones around the neck of League of Legends lore for ages and ages and ages. This is why there is so much undeveloped lore in the game, is that they just don't put out enough of a volume of content, enough of a volume of material and work for the players to see, at the very least. They do a lot of work behind the scenes, I'm absolutely sure of that, but they don't put out enough product for the players to see that we can appreciate any of that, and not nearly enough that it makes any kind of a difference to an outside assessment of the League of Legends universe. It is that dedication to quality control on one hand that slows down everything they do and ensures that it has a decent quality, but it's also what slows out the output. And having such a slow output means that so many of the characters in League of Legends have functionally have their characters killed, in a sense. Not in the sense that they're dead, but their lore has died. When is the last time we got a story about Fiddlesticks? Quite a long time ago. Annie had that fantastic lore reboot, that amazing animated short some years back, like around the time that the art book came out, actually. Where's she been since? I think she had like a short story where she burnt down a bar. That's it. 140 something characters, and barely any of them get development per year. And it seems to me like the feeling I have is that the lore department is working at absolute capacity. They're doing everything they can with the resources and time they have available, and yet they're making barely any headway, ultimately. And this is also something we've talked about with the Star Guardians in particular, is that like they had a really cool idea for the Star Guardians when they made that first team, Lux, Poppy, Lulu, Janna, and Jinx, like a really cool team dynamic, and then nothing happened, and now all of a sudden it's like we're 5 seasons into a show that we never got season 1 of, with the animated short for Ari and her whole storyline, and the thing about Zoe and this ultimate villain thing and these evil Star Guardians. Like, where the hell did they come from? Where was all the setup? Where was all the stuff that was supposed to lay the groundwork? It never came out because Riot can't act fast enough to put out the level of content that's necessary to keep these universes alive, which is why it always feels fractured. It always feels like you're sort of getting barely half a peek into something interesting before the door is slammed shut in your face and you have to wait for the next time someone comes along to open it, maybe 3 years from now. There's a quote. I think it's Kurt Vonnegut who said something along the lines of, "The primary flaw of the human character is that everybody wants to build, but nobody wants to do maintenance." Something along those lines. I may be paraphrasing. But I think League of Legends is a demonstration of that. Riot Games as a company, not necessarily the people who work there, but as a company, has a tendency to get very excited about putting out cool new things, cool new characters, cool new skin lines, cool new lore hooks, cool new stories, cool new regions, cool new everything. But as a company, they have never seemed excited at all about doing the hard work of maintaining all those things they put out, of following up on those storylines, on making sure that when Lucian maybe encounters Thresh once or twice in a story somewhere, so that they can build up a dynamic between them, so that you can really get a sense for like Thresh's cruelty and Lucian's cold hatred for him, and like the things that drive him. It's been frustrating for a long time, watching Riot kind of flounder and fail to follow up on the potential of all the amazingly great ideas that are present in their lore. And Realms, I think, represents the first bit of maintenance in a very long time. Like, it represents the first time in a very long time that I feel like Riot has looked at their narrative universe and gone, right, let's set some things down in stone. Let's put these things in a book where we can't retcon it anymore, to say, this is what Ionia is like. Boom, set in stone. There we go. That's a basis to build stories on. Here's what Shurima is like. Boom, set in stone. This is something to build on. Like, to create a physical object that can't be retconned, that kind of forces them to commit to something, rather than having everything kind of be in that constant flux of, yeah, we'll figure it out later and we'll work on. It's a bit of maintenance, and it's encouraging, and I'd like to commend the lore department at Riot for getting this thing off the ground, and for putting in enough work that it was possible to make this. And it signals a confidence from both the lore department and Riot that the lore they have created now, finally, unlike the stuff they had before the 2014 lore retcon, can stand. That it can stay, and that we can read this book a year from now, and still have everything within it be canon. Hopefully. That's what it feels like. That's the signal I'm getting from it. Like, that's my interpretation of what this means to a fan of League of Legends, is a signal that we finally got the basics down. We finally made the world solid enough that we can put it down on paper. So, another thing about Riot. One of the reasons why Riot has always been so slow, at least in my opinion, one of the limitations they keep imposing on themselves is an unwillingness to license and outsource their work. We talked about this. Is that aesthetic of obstinate dedication of aesthetics of quality control, where they keep control over everything, which of course allows them to never put anything out if it's not good enough to live up to their standards. One of the things that's been encouraging to me in seeing them work with Marvel, especially on the comic book series that are coming out, the Lux comic, the Ash comic, and their commitment to actually putting out a novella set in the League of Legends universe, to actually put some physical media out there, is that once you sign those deals with publishers, especially with someone as big as Marvel, you have to deliver on it. Like, you can't say, oh, we're gonna do a series of Lux comics and then only do the first Lux comic volume 1 and then never do volume 2, because you have signed a deal for quite a few millions of dollars with Marvel to make sure that this thing happens, and if you don't follow up on that, if you don't deliver on that contract, well, you get sued and you get screwed. So it's been encouraging for me to see Riot actually make licensing agreements, actually make publishing agreements with companies that they don't control, and which, like, where they don't set all of the terms. And that's something that's also encouraging to me about this particular book, is they're selling it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, BAM, IndieBound, and Indigo, and that means it cannot be delayed. The release date is set. It's going to have to come out at that point, because that's the agreement that they've made with those retailers. Or, I mean, they can delay it. Obviously, they can delay it. That happens sometimes, but they can't just cancel it and cancel all the pre-orders without facing some serious consequences. And I hope this is a signal that they're willing, because this book, by the way, is not published by Riot Games themselves. They're working in conjunction with a publisher called Voracious, I think it was, Voracious Publishing, which I couldn't find a lot about them online. The website I found seemed to be a publisher mostly doing self-help books and cookbooks, which might not be the correct publisher I found there, but certainly an interesting choice for a book about video game lore. But they're working with an outside publisher. They're not doing everything internally, as far as I can tell. They're making deals with other companies to hold Riot Games responsible for certain release dates and deadlines. And all of that, to me, is encouraging. I have advocated for a long time in favor of Riot taking an approach to lore creation that's more like Marvel, or something like the Star Wars Expanded Universe, where they license out their IP to outsiders and give them some level of freedom to do whatever the hell they want without too much obsessive quality control hanging over their shoulders. And then, when some stuff gets put out that's not very good, you just declare it non-canon and do something else instead. This is an approach, by the way, that's worked really well for Games Workshop. That's something I've wanted Riot to do for a long time, because as far as I can tell, they cannot, like, they have to recognize the limitation that they can't do it all in-house anymore. There's too many characters, there's too much of a universe. Hopefully they're working on more video games that's gonna need, writing, and like, they're working on that fighting game. And we know they're working on a mobile game for League of Legends as well, which probably is not gonna take a lot of resources away from narrative. And hopefully they're working on more games. Like, I'm hoping that for the 10th anniversary, they'll have something more to show than just a mobile app. They can't do everything in-house anymore. They need outside partners. That's the major reason why they partnered with Marvel for the comics, by the way. It wasn't just because they're Marvel and, oh, that's cool, but because Marvel has a huge network of publishing partners. They have printers, they have a publishing distribution network, they have connections with Diamond, which is one of the biggest comic publishers in the world. They could get their comics on Comixology. They had access to a huge network of artists and creators, letterers, printers, editors, people who could work on the artwork of the comics themselves and outsource all of that stuff, which is why it's been so nice to see, hey, Lux all of a sudden has a story that's moving a little bit. Ash all of a sudden has a story that's better developed than pretty much every single other goddamn character in the entire game all of a sudden, and so does Sejuani. It's been tremendously successful, and I hope it's going to be encouraging Riot to do more of that in the future, to commit to more of those outside deadlines, more of those licensing projects. And that was pretty much what I wanted to talk about. That's what this book signals to me. That Riot have become comfortable, finally, doing a bit of outsourcing, letting go of a little bit of that aesthetic of quality control that they've been holding on to so tightly since, pretty much since 2009 at this point. And so, to finish up the video, let's actually have a look at what's inside this damn book. Because it looks quite good. First of all, this looks like it's going to be a long-ass book. Bandle City... this is the index, by the way. And I have a little bit of criticism. I hate tables of content like this. No, don't put the 8 down here and the 96 up there and the 16 over there and the 162. What the hell are you doing? Give me a table of contents I can read. Anyway, the biggest number I found on this is 254. So I'm assuming this book is going to be like 270 pages long at the very least. I'm hoping it anyway. Something between 260 and 270 pages would be my guess for the length of this book, which is good. And we're getting a preview of some of the stuff that's on the pages. Now, mostly what's on here is the pretty pictures, obviously, because that's how you sell a book on Amazon. You don't sell it by showing just pages of a page of text, necessarily. So we're getting a lot of assets that I recognize from the universe and from the map pages, like you may have seen this picture before, these ones. But we're also getting a bunch of illustrations that I don't recognize. Like, I don't recognize this one. It may be on the universe, but I haven't seen it. And we're getting lots of, like, descriptions here. Sump scrappers. Nothing is wasted in the sun, and even the toxic hinterlands of the sump can be churned for salvage. This environment is too hostile for unprotected humans, so the sump scrappers make it marvelous living by wading through the waste looking for anything of value. Which, again, lots of cool world building going on here. And lots of cool little character designs and little insights into what the world is going to be like. And also, hopefully, quite a lot of these. This is the first couple of pages of a story called Water and Shape to You, which is a short story featuring a character named Kari, who I don't think we've ever heard about before, set in Shurima, which deals with some of the stuff there. We only get the first couple of pages of it, but I'm hoping that there's going to be a bunch more of these mixed in there. And I'm quite happy about that. And also, those corner designs, like those designs around the sides, those sort of Egyptian-style runes and stuff with the sun disk in the middle, that's pretty cool. Like, there's a high level of quality on display here. And by the way, this is one of the reasons why I don't think we're ever going to get the Art of League of Legends Volume 2, because this seems to be that big-ass splash page featuring artwork. This is pretty much filling that role, that space in the publishing. And I hope this book is going to be as high quality as The Art of League of Legends Volume 2. But one of the points I'm trying to get at here is it doesn't need to be. The Art of League of Legends Volume 1 is an exceptionally high quality book, but it could have been half as good. Like, the quality could have been half as good, and it would still have been a very good book that would have been worth putting out. And this is rumors and speculation and discussion and hearsay, mostly from people who have worked at Riot, people I've talked to, like, sort of just being in the adjacency of Riot for a long time. But Riot has a bit of a tendency to leave things on the cutting room floor when they can't overcome that obstinate dedication to an aesthetic of quality control. Like, when there's internal dispute about how to publish something, about whether to put it out in one form or the other, or exactly how to do it, Riot historically, at least as far as my information goes, has been liable to drop it on the cutting room floor and leave it there for ages or forever, rather than try and resolve the issue or even think about accepting the idea of putting out a product that isn't 100% up to their quality standards, even though that product would have been enjoyed by a great many people. It's something I like to call the two cakes principle. That's been a very useful way of thinking for me when it comes to... I actually have an image of it here. Let me pull that up. Here. The artist. Oh man, that guy's cake is way better than mine. The audience. Holy shit, 2 cakes! This is the 2 cakes principle. Riot has a tendency to be this guy. And if their cake doesn't measure up to that cake, they don't even put the cake on the table. The audience is always like this. There's so much of this imperfect but still perfectly lovely cake that Riot, to the best of my knowledge, hasn't put out. Not because it wasn't good, but because it failed to live up to a fairly arbitrary standard of good enough internally. And that's something I hope they don't do more of in the future. But like this looks gorgeous. Like, this looks absolutely lovely. I'm a little... The only thing that kind of annoys me a little bit is that looking at the pages, like, the ratio of text to just pictures is small. Like, it doesn't seem like outside of the short stories themselves, and even there, it's like, the words don't take up that much of the page. It doesn't seem like they do a lot of writing in this particular thing. It seems like it's mostly, let's have some pictures and then have some writing next to it that sort of briefly describes what's happening in the pictures. Which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. That doesn't mean it's going to be bad. It's just, I'm the kind of nerd who was hoping, oh, I want 12 paragraphs of just excruciating lore detail. Oh yeah, feed it right into my veins. Like, that's what I get off on. But I completely understand why maybe they wouldn't want to put that out as a premium product, because a lot of people would just be like, holy shit, what is this dense bullshit? I wanted to see some cool pictures and stuff. Anyway, I'm excited for this book. I hope I can get my hands on one. I am admittedly kind of iffy about giving Riot any of my money these days because of the aforementioned Scott Gelb, and indeed their pretty shoddy treatment of their employees when it comes to issues of equal pay and stuff. But it's part of my job, so I might have to order one once it's actually out. And if I do, obviously I'll be making a video about that as well. Anyway, if you have enjoyed this particular long-winded ramble about some fairly high-concept nonsense thoughts that I have about the way League of Legends handles its lore and its story, well, you should feel free to hit the like button down below, the comment button, the subscribe button, and all the other buttons, the bell icon, and all of that good stuff that allows a YouTube channel to stay alive into the future, I hope. If you want to support this channel more directly and help me recover my voice from doing, like, literally 40 or 50 takes for this goddamn video because I kept stumbling over my words and going off on tangents I wasn't supposed to talk about, then Patreon is right there for that. Let me actually check. Yeah, 49 takes. This is take number 49 for this video. Then patreon.com is an option where you can sign up for a subscription for $1 a month or whatever, and that's very helpful to me. If you don't want to sign up for a monthly subscription, I do have a tip jar over on Coffee and also Streamlabs down in the description where you can give me a one-time tip to say, hey, you sure sound like you need a glass of water right now. Here's $3. That should probably buy water for you. I don't know. What does water cost these days? I mean, it comes out of the faucet and you're just like, it's free, but it's really never free, is it? What is my water bill anyway? I'm rambling because it's 4 a.m. 5 a.m. Oh god, it's 5 a.m. Oh my god, it's 5:45. Shit, okay. I should end this video now. Thank you very much for watching.